Hello, and welcome back to yet another retro channel. Today is part 6, technically part, I think 9 grand total, of the epic Commodore 64 Repair-a-thon. And in this episode, we're going to try to finish up the last 3 boards. What you see before you is board number 6, and the truth of the matter is we don't have anything to do on this one. What happened was, when I prepared all these boards and did the initial inspection on them and then did the cleaning, I boards 1 through 5 were in cases and with keyboards and complete chipsets, and we just had to figure out what was wrong with them. Boards 6, 7, and 8 were bare, no case, no keyboard, and each of them had at least one, if not more, missing ICs from them. So what I did was I took boards 6, 7, and 8, and I removed them. I removed the remaining ICs from them that were socketed. I didn't. I don't think I. Well, I don't think I pulled anything that wasn't socketed, but I think that there were definitely ICs that had been taken before I got them that were not socketed. So this board, however, had a complete complement of ICs, except for it was missing a SID. But all these IC, the 2 CIAs, 2 of the ROMs, the CPU, the PLA, the SID, and the VIC-II all had sockets, plus 2 of the RAM chips, and 2 of the logic ICs were socketed. Now, what I should have done with this when I was originally doing this was take all of those ICs that still existed in the sockets out, tested them either in the ZIF machine or in the TL866 Mini Pro programmer for the logic ICs, and any that were working were supposed to go into my stash of spares. But that never happened with this board. It happened with the other 2. The other 2 don't have any of their ICs, and they're missing some sockets and whatnot. But this one had the sockets, had the complete complement of chips, except for the SID chip. So when I pulled these back out to get ready for today's video, I realized all the chips were still there. So I went ahead and with the intent of re-adding those chips to the spares to put all these machines back together again, I went ahead and did the testing in the ZIF machine and in the Mini Pro. And it turned out that all of the ICs that were out of here that it had, of course, it had no SID, but all of the ICs, the 2 memory ICs, 2 logic ICs, and all the MOS ICs were good, tested good. So I thought, well, let's just take a look and see. So I repopulated this board with the ICs that had been originally pulled out of it, and I deoxidated all the sockets and put everything back. I started with just the CPU, the PLA, and the VIC-II, and ran dead test, and that ran. So I repopulated the rest of them, deoxidating all the sockets as I went, and that still left me without a SID. But I went ahead and ran the full diagnostics, and it ran. So I put the harness on, and it all passed except for the SID, which was still missing, failed, and the control ports failed. So I put an ARM SID in, and I ran the test again with the full diagnostics, and sure enough, this machine is working. The only problem with it was that it was missing an ARM SID. Everything else was fine. There was one thing I thought might have been a problem, but it wasn't. This position here is supposed to be a 74LS06 Whoever had put this together before, whoever had socketed this and replaced it, had replaced it with a 7416, and I thought that might be a problem. However, the 7416 is actually pin compatible with the 7406. It just has different uh, tolerances and voltage levels, but it has the same function and it's pin compatible, so that wouldn't have been a problem. However, I did put a 7406 back in here anyway. With the SID, this machine is fully working, and I can show you real quick. So as you can see, machine 6 is fully working. And that means we're going to be able to go ahead and move on and work on machines 7 and 8, which are not fully working. So here are machines 7 and 8. Now, as you can see, these machines are missing many ICs, and in most cases are also missing sockets. I'm going to have to populate these sockets. I also need to put back the power switches and retest the voltage. So what we're going to do, start with machine number 7, and we're going to go into a montage of rebuilding these systems. Okay, there is board 7 resocketed now. I do have to say, whoever did work on this board before really mangled the memory when they pulled it out. I don't even know what their reason for pulling it was. What they did for most of it was snip the pins at the chip body and pull them, and then they also tried to desolder them. So I can only assume that they tried to desolder them first, they failed, and then they clipped the pins. But if they were trying to reuse the RAM in another machine, they've clipped the pins, and that's not going to work. If, however, they were trying to repair this, then why didn't they complete the job, pull the pin remnants out, which the pin remnants are, I shouldn't be working with them under the board, but the pin remnants were still in there. So if they were replacing the RAM in this machine, why didn't they take those out and socket or at least install new RAM? So I don't get what they were doing. But in the process, they actually mangled this bank, or this second half of the bank down here. There were quite a few ripped traces on the top of the board, ripped off the board, the traces, the pads. So as you can see, I had to bodge quite a bit to get the signals back to where they were supposed to be. But now everything is connected apparently as it should be. So that's this board. Now we will go ahead and work on the second board, getting it socketed. So we're done with soldering sockets and power switches. Clean up a little bit. Now we're actually ready to start with diagnostics. Okay, for machine 7, we're going to need RAM. That's the first thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the ZIF machine and start testing some RAM chips from my stores, because they're not always 100% reliable, but we need to find 8 of them that work. Make sure our ZIF machine is working, and it is. So we can run these tests. Okay, so we just need to find 8 good RAM chips. This one is already a check mark, so we'll assume that's probably good. That's 8 good RAM chips and only 1 bad. All right, then let's get these populated. Those are all installed. Here's the original 373. Let's give this a test in the Mini Pro and see if it's still good. And yes, it is. So let's get that back installed. Okay, now we will install a replacement CPU. PLA. This is one of the gal PLAs. And my last remaining VIC-II. If we can get this board working, we'll have to take this VIC-II back out of it to work on the other board. All right, we've got no obvious bent pins. Everything is inserted with the notch in the right direction, so pin 1's orientation is correct. And we should be ready for dead test. One of these days I will get my second VersaCart with the dead tests on it working, so I don't have to switch those jumpers and dip switches. Okay. Flashing. 8 flashes. Well, that's interesting because we know we put in good working RAM. Tells me I've probably still got a problem. Like I said, that fellow who worked on this before me really mangled the traces underneath this RAM. So let me do a little rechecking and see what we got. We're in continuity mode. So on the RAM, on each of them, pins 2 and 14 should be continuous. That's the data line. One thing I didn't do was check for bridges between the pins on the chip. So let me do that real quick. And 15. Okay, so there are no bridges between the pins, and checking on that one is enough because apart from 2 and 14, all the other pins are common between all the chips. So as long as we get the proper continuity. Now, like I said, 1 is not connected, so it's not going to have any connectivity to any of these other chips. 2 is only connected to 14 and then to wherever it goes. And I suppose we'll check that first. Okay, those all go where they're supposed to. So pin 3 should be common. Oh, okay. I missed one. Okay. I better know what's going on. Pin 3 on this socket. Yeah. It was a little bit mangled, and I didn't notice it till it was already soldered in. And I tried to fix it. Apparently I didn't get it fixed well enough. So let's see if I can make it a little better contact. Try again. Let's see if we're making contact now. Okay, we are. So back to where we were going. Pin 3. Okay, pin 7. Take a look here. Okay, we don't have connectivity on pin 7. We did, but we don't now. So let's fix that. Okay. 8, 10. I think I've already bodged 10. It just implies that I didn't quite get it right. See if that fixes 10. Okay, that fixes 10. Okay. That's all the bodges back in place. So let's replace this RAM chip. And now see what we get on dead test. Here we go. And dead test is running. So we'll let that run through. We have no times at the bottom because we have no or we have bad times at the bottom, I should say, because we have no CIAs. Okay, and of course no sound because we have no SID. All right, so the machine is running dead test fine as it is. And since we know that all of our remaining stores have been tested, it should be safe to go ahead and populate the rest of the board at this point. I will leave the SID out, leave that for last, but we're going to go ahead and put in a pair of CIAs. Okay, and we should be able to switch over now to the regular diagnostics. And there we go. See how far it gets with this. And then we'll add a SID and the diagnostic harness and see if we get all the way through. Okay, the bads you're seeing in the opens are because the diagnostic harness isn't on and the SID isn't in. Everything else is fine. So let's put in a SID. I'm going to go with my one remaining R4AR working SID. And then the diagnostic harness. And what do we get this time? We should get a full pass. Timers are working right. Well, that's interesting. Got bad on the 6526s. Now, didn't like the serial port and the user port. So let's do a little deoxit in that serial port. Give it a few. And a little work on the user port. Just make sure it wasn't caused by bad connections. Ah, it was just bad connections. Okay. Well, you guys know what's coming next. If I'm going to certify this thing as fixed, I have to run everybody's favorite test, Donkey Kong Arcade. 12 volts there, 5 volts there, 12 volts, 5 volts. Five volts, 5 volts, 10.4 volts AC. So I need to repopulate some chips. A lot of these were stored away with it. Okay, what do we have? We have we're looking at the logic ICs in the Mini Pro. Here is one of the 4066s. That's testing fine. The other 4066 tests fine. The 74373 tests normal. The 74139 tests normal. The 74LS74 tests normal. And then, as I say, we cannot test the 556 timer in the Mini Pro, so we'll have to just give that a shot and see what happens. So let's go ahead and replace, oh dear, vent pin. Let's go ahead and replace our 4066s. Okay, that's the logic chips back in. Now, we're going to need a dead test. Okay, that's a dead test. Let's get ourselves a CPU. Okay, CPU, a PLA, and the VIC-II. Always forgetting the deoxit. Okay. See if we get anything from the dead test. We have black screen. We are still getting our voltages, yes. 11.8 is fine. 4.87 is fine. .9 is fine. So our voltages are still good. I wonder if our 555 timer is at fault, since that was socketed. let's take a look at our reset line, which is handled by that 556. No, reset is high, so that's as should be. Let's make sure that's behaving. So it should stay low for a moment and then jump high. And it does, that's good. Let's take a look at a few other signals here. Let's look at our clock. Our clock is on pin 1. And time base. And see what our measure frequency. 990.1. That is actually a little low. 990. It should be 1.02 megahertz if this is an NTSC machine. I wonder, is it possible that this is a PAL machine? Okay, so after some examination, I have determined that this is actually a PAL board. I didn't know I had any PAL boards. It turns out I have 2, but I'll explain the other one in a second. But if you could look closely here, you would see that this is 17.73447 megahertz crystal oscillator. And you could also see that the PAL jumper is in place. So this machine is actually expecting to output PAL. So you might think that would be a problem, and it kind of is, but the truth of the matter is, as I have found out, a PAL machine will work with an NTSC VIC-II, and that's what I've got here. That's all I've got is NTSC VIC-IIs. I have placed an order for a 6569 R5 VIC-II, so hopefully that'll come in a couple of weeks and I'll be able to make this machine whole. But for testing purposes and troubleshooting purposes, a 6567 R8 will work. And I know that for 2 reasons. 1, because I've been told that, and 2, because the other machine in my collection that I have found is a PAL machine is my ZIF machine. And I've been using it with all kinds of NTSC VIC-IIs. This is again a 17.73447 megahertz clock, and the PAL jumper is in place. So what I will do with this at a later time is I will convert this to an NTSC machine, because I'm primarily most likely going to be working with NTSC C64s going forward. So it's best to have this machine be identical to the ones that are not identical because of the different board revisions, but have it be the same configuration as the ones I'm working on. So this has worked flawlessly with a bunch of different VIC-IIs in it, a bunch of different all NTSC VIC-IIs. I don't own a single 6569. So that's where we stand today. Is we're going to troubleshoot this as if it were a plain NTSC C64. We just have to remember that the clock frequency is going to be around 985-ish. My scope isn't accurate enough. It was reading 990 kilohertz, but it should be around 985 kilohertz. And I guess, as I understand it, the colors are a little off if you use the wrong VIC-II chip, but it will still work. So this machine is still at the point where we are getting black screen only on the dead test. As you can see, we're getting no flashing and no nothing. So we need to start troubleshooting, and obviously our problem isn't going to be up here because these ICs aren't even in, SID isn't in, the ROMs aren't in, CIAs aren't in. The problem is going to be in either the memory or the logic, and I'm going to guess that the problem is logic, because if you take a close enough look here, you will see that right here, right here, right here, and right here, we have the infamous MOS branded logic chips. This is a MOS 7707, which is a replacement for the 74LS06. These two are MOS 7708s, which are the replacement for the 74LS257. And this one is a MOS 7712, which is a replacement for a 74LS08. So I'm going to start one by one removing these and looking for bad ones. I'll test them each in the Mini Pro before putting them back or replacing them. So we need to heat up our desoldering station and our soldering iron, and we will begin getting those ICs out of there. We're going to start with the 7707. Well, actually, no, you know what? I think I'm going to start with the 7708s, the replacements for the 257, because those are very important to, they're all important to memory, but these two are particularly important to the addressing. Okay, here is our first 74LS257. Okay, that one's testing good. So that one can go back in. The second 257. And that one also tests good. The two 257s aren't the problem. In that case, we'll move on to the 74LS08. Okay, and that tests good. Well, we have only one more to pull, and that's the 74LS06. Okay, if this isn't bad, then we've got something more complex going on. Here is the 7406. The 7406 has a non-standard and a regular version. I always forget to select the standard version, and it tests normal as the standard version. So those were our most likely candidates. But now let's go ahead and put our sockets in and get those back in the board. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to test again with dead test, as there is a possibility that pulling those and replacing them created repaired a contact that was bad, and it's possible it may work now. So we'll take a look and see what we get. I'm not expecting anything. Nope, still nothing. Just out of curiosity, let's put on the other dead test. Okay, we're still getting black screen. Let's actually switch it over to the original dead test. That was the STID dead test. Get the original dead test. Any difference? No, still black screen. So let's try this. Let's put in a different gal PLA just in case that gal PLA isn't working right. See what we get. I mean, we've tested all of the. Whoa. Whoa. Really? One of my gal PLAs go bad again? Well, that's par for the course with those gal PLAs. Sometimes the gals go bad. We've been chasing our tails here. And as you can see, this PAL board with an NTSC VIC-II is working fine. The colors will be a little off. So, as you can see, it passes dead test. So, time to start populating other chips. Let's go ahead and give it a pair of CIAs and see if those timers start working. Okay, try it with the CIAs. Okay, so passes with the CIAs in. So let's give it a set of ROMs. A little tight with those two adapter boards in there, but it'll work. Okay, now dead test, as we know, doesn't use the ROMs, but if the ROMs are bad, it can trash the bus and prevent the dead test from running. So nope, it's running, so that's good. We don't need to go any further with that because all we needed to find out was if it would run. Now, let's put a SID in. Okay, and we're going to switch to the STID dead test because this will test not only the basic sound, but will test the filters on the SID. So we'll let this run all the way through. Okay, so everything is working in dead test. So now we can move on to the regular diagnostics. And we're going to jump ahead and use the harness. Now, if I've set this up right, this should be the enhanced diagnostics. Here we go. Yep, right diagnostics. And there you go, a full pass. So we're passing all the diagnostics. There is one last thing to do, and I think you all know what it is. I can't do this through the capture device. You'll see it, but you won't hear it through the capture device because of the out of syncness of the PAL versus NTSC. But okay, and just to make sure, bring it up in just basic. And the right amount of RAM and the flashing cursor and everything's good. We have yet another fully functional Commodore 64. Machine number 8 is done. Well, machine number 8 is partially done, mostly done. The last thing, of course, I need to do is swap out the 6567 for a 6569 and make this PAL machine a proper PAL machine. And that'll do it. This 6567 will go back into the number 7 machine where we took it from to get that machine back to fully operational. And that's the end of the C64 Epic Repairathon. 8 machines dead, 8 machines restored to life. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, a thumbs up. If not, you know what to do there too. If you haven't subscribed already, please do that and click the notification bell so you get notified when I bring out new videos. Share this if you want to. If you know people who might be inclined to enjoy this type of thing. And comment below. I love the engagement with my viewers. It's what keeps me going. Be sure to check out my friends in the Retro YouTube Repairers group. Those would be Captain Commodore, Joseph Retro Bits, 8-Bit Retro Refix, and Retro for You. You'll find links to them in the description below. And I think that'll do it. So, everybody, until next time, be safe and be well. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.